Ryan and Emily, a young couple who had recently moved to the city, had been searching for a new place to live. After weeks of looking, they finally found a beautiful two-story house for rent at a surprisingly affordable price. The owner, an elderly woman, seemed kind and allowed them to move in the very next day. On their first day, as they explored the house, Ryan noticed a locked door on the first floor. "Hey, this room is locked. Did the owner mention anything about it?" Ryan asked Emily. Emily frowned. "She did. She said it's just a storage room with old furniture and asked us not to open it." Ryan shrugged. "Weird, but okay." That night, as they settled into their new home, Emily woke up suddenly. A faint scratching sound echoed through the hallway. It was subtle, almost like nails dragging against wood. She sat up, heart pounding. Ryan, wake up," she whispered, shaking him. Ryan groggily opened his eyes. "What is it?" "Listen." They both stayed silent. A soft knock followed the scratching, coming from the direction of the locked room. "Maybe it's the wind," Ryan muttered, trying to sound unconcerned. The next morning, thinking it was just their imagination, they ignored it. But with each passing night, the noises grew louder, whispers that felt too close, too real. One night, Emily couldn't take it anymore. "Ryan, we need to open that door. Something is not right." Ryan hesitated, but nodded. The following morning, while the owner was out of town, he decided to break the lock. As soon as he forced the door open, a heavy chill filled the air. The room was dark, dust covering every surface. A wooden chair sat in the middle, facing the wall. The walls had deep scratches, as if someone had clawed at them desperately. Then they saw it. A faded, blood-stained mattress on the floor, a broken phone with a shattered screen, and a diary. Emily picked up the diary with trembling hands and started reading. "He promised he would come back for me. Days turned into weeks, but he never did. I waited. I cried, but I was all alone. The voices started whispering, telling me he was never coming back, telling me I didn't have to wait anymore. Maybe they were right." Emily's hands shook. "Ryan, this isn't a storage room." Before Ryan could respond, the temperature dropped even more. Then, from the dark corner of the room, a hoarse, broken voice whispered,
"You shouldn't be here. Get out."
The lights flickered violently and the air grew heavy. Ryan and Emily didn't wait another second. They turned and ran out of the room as fast as they could. The next morning, they called the owner, demanding answers. There was silence on the other end, before the old woman sighed. "A young woman rented that room years ago. She went missing, but the police never found her. Some say she never left." Ryan and Emily packed their bags and left that night. As they drove away, Emily glanced at the window of the locked room. A shadow stood there watching them leave. The playground. Lily was a cheerful 5-year-old girl who had been asking her father, David, to take her to a new playground all Sunday. David, a single father, had been reluctant at first. After a long week at work, all he wanted was a quiet day at home. But Lily was persistent, and by evening, he finally gave in. He drove her to a small playground at the edge of town, a place he had never been to before. It was an old and forgotten park with rusting swings and a faded slide. The air carried a strange stillness, as if the place had been left untouched for years. Beyond the playground stood the ruins of an abandoned school, its walls cracked and covered in creeping vines. The sight of the collapsed building made David uneasy, but Lily's excitement was all that mattered. As soon as he parked the car, Lily jumped out and ran toward the swings, laughing. David sat on a bench nearby, scrolling through his phone and glancing up occasionally to check on her. At first, everything seemed normal. She was swinging high, giggling with joy. Then, something felt different. Lily was talking. Her lips moved, her hands gestured, and every now and then, she paused as if listening, but she was alone. David frowned. His eyes scanned the playground. A few other children were playing near the slide, but none were with Lily. Yet she kept laughing and chatting, as if someone unseen stood beside her. A cold sensation crawled up his spine. He called out to her, "Lily, who are you talking to?" She turned to him, her eyes bright with excitement. "I am talking with Emily, Dad. She was pushing me on the swing. Now she is near the slide." David's gaze shifted to the slide. It was empty. His stomach tightened. He forced a smile and asked, "Sweetheart, do you know her? Have you met her before?" Lily pointed toward the broken walls of the abandoned school. "She said she used to go to that school, but she does not know why no one goes there anymore." David's breath caught in his throat. He had heard about that school before. Years ago, part of the building collapsed during renovations. The story was tragic. A young girl had been trapped under a falling wall. His hands turned clammy. Lily's voice was softer now. She said a big thing fell on her. She could not move. She waited and waited for her mom and dad, but they never came. David felt a deep unease settle in his chest. He stood up quickly. "All right, Lily, it is getting dark. Time to go." Lily pouted. "But Daddy, Emily wants to come with us." David stiffened. His heart pounded louder. "Lily, what do you mean?" She smiled innocently. "She likes me. She wants to play at our house too." A cold shiver ran through David's body. Without another word, he took Lily's hand and led her to the car. As they walked away, a sudden gust of wind rustled the trees and the chains of the empty swings creaked. He did not look back. That night after dinner, David tucked Lily into bed and kissed her goodnight. He told himself it was just an imaginary friend. Children made them up all the time. But something about the way Lily spoke of Emily unsettled him. The house was quiet. Hours passed. David was finally drifting into sleep when a faint giggle echoed through the hallway. His eyes snapped open. He sat up in bed, listening. A whisper, soft and playful. "Emily, stop, that tickles." David's breath caught in his throat. His body froze. Then came another voice. It was not Lily's. It was softer, fainter, almost a breath.
Hey Lily, keep your voice down. If you are too loud, Dad will hear us.
The farmhouse. Matt, Jake, and Ryan had been planning this weekend for weeks. A night of drinks, laughter, and no distractions at Matt's family's old farmhouse far from the city. The place had been in his family for generations, nestled deep in the countryside. As they reached the farmhouse, Matt got an urgent call from work. "Guys, I'm really sorry, but I have to leave for a few hours. You two go ahead and start without me. I'll be back before midnight." "Are you serious? This place is creepy as hell at night," Jake muttered. "Relax, have a few drinks, and I promise I'll be back soon," Matt assured them before driving off. Jake and Ryan sighed, but decided to make the best of it. They turned up the music, poured their drinks, and after a while, the eerie silence of the countryside didn't seem so unsettling anymore. A little past 10 p.m., there was a sudden knock on the door. They froze. Jake looked at Ryan. "Did Matt say he was bringing someone?" Ryan shook his head. No one else was supposed to come. Matt said he can't make it soon. Another knock. Slower this time. Cautiously, Ryan opened the door. Standing outside was an old man in worn-out farmer's clothes. His face was gaunt, his eyes hollow. Yet there was something strangely familiar about him. "Evening, boys," the old man said, his voice raspy. "It's mighty cold out here. Mind if I join you for a little while?" Jake and Ryan exchanged nervous glances. Who are you?" Jake asked. The old man chuckled. "Didn't Matt tell you? I look after this place when no one's around. Name's Jim. Been here longer than I can remember." Ryan hesitated, but Jake, eager for a distraction, gestured him in. "Yeah, sure, come on in." Jim sat down, warming his hands by the fire. As they drank, he spoke of strange things, the wolves in the woods, the things that lurked in the darkness. "You boys best stay inside tonight," he warned, his voice eerily calm. "The wolves around here, they don't just hunt animals." Ryan forced a laugh. "All right, Jim, you're really setting the mood for a horror movie." Jim simply smiled but said nothing more. Sometime past midnight, Jim stood up. "I should get going. You boys sleep safe." And just like that, he left, disappearing into the night. When Matt returned in the morning, he found Jake and Ryan already up, looking hungover but oddly quiet. "Rough night?" Matt asked, smirking. "You could say that," Jake said. "Too bad you missed the fun. We had company." Matt frowned. "Company? Who?" "An old man. Jim. Said he looks after the place when you're not here," Ryan said, pouring himself coffee. Matt's face darkened. "What old man? I don't have anyone looking after this place." Ryan and Jake exchanged glances. "Come on, man, he knew you. Said he's been here for years," Jake insisted. Matt's hands trembled slightly as he set down his keys. "Describe him." Ryan hesitated before replying. "Tall, thin, worn-out clothes. Face looked kind of hollow." Matt stood silent for a moment, then walked to a shelf and pulled out an old photo. He handed it to them. Jake's blood ran cold. It was Jim. "That's him. That's the guy," Ryan whispered. Matt swallowed hard. "That's my great-uncle Jim. He used to take care of the farmhouse." Jake frowned. "Used to? What do you mean, used to?" Matt's breath hitched. He hesitated. Then, in a hushed voice, he whispered, "He died last year. Mauled by wolves. Right outside this very house."